welcome to Showboys. My name is Mike, and I'm joined by the one and only Pixel Nick over there, and we're also joined by the good man. I don't know, the
good
bearded
sir.
wonder,
notorious,
Fine
the
gentleman,
notorious JOR.
D.
And I don't. Yeah, that's just terrible.
when you guys started
Jordan
saying that, I'm
too.
like, did I spell it right?
Yeah.
Jordy.
But yeah, we're here. It's Thursday,
Jordan Belfort.
So we got an episode of Showboys for you guys. And I just have to laugh because I just looked at my phone and realized Jordan's like panically, if that's even a word, I'm gonna make it a word, texting me like, where's the link? Where's the link? I just realized because Nick and I were off screen before we went live, and we're like, oh, it's 9:02. We should probably get going. You should message Nick, Jordan, and you should message Jordan, Nick, and I'll take us live.
Oh, you
and
never sent him
I
the link?
always forget that Jordan doesn't have the StreamYard info, so he can't just pop into the StreamYard whenever he wants. He needs us to send him an invite to the stream. So.
When you said I was like panicking, trying to get in, I was like, I thought I was pretty calm, and then I reread the text, and I said, "Where is the invite?" And then after that, I sent link. Almost like I was like, link now,
Yeah.
I meant to say, where is the invite link?
That's all right. It's all right. It's all good. Yeah. It's totally my fault because I'm sitting here like, where the heck's Jordan? Oh, it's funny. He can't actually get in because I didn't send him the link. Yeah. So bad job out of me. But we're here. It should be a fun night. Chad, he had a birthday the other day, and I don't know if he's like fully recovered from his birthday festivities. So he's out tonight. Actually, he's just out tonight because he didn't see The Flash, which is totally fine because neither did Dad, our aggressively mediocre producer. So he also is not here. But Nick, you didn't see The Flash, and you are here.
Yeah, I don't need to see it, to kind of like know how good it was. You know what I mean?
If you lean like just the correct way, the opposite way that you just leaned, your headphone cord like lines up with the Flash red, and it looks really nice. Yeah, so we're here. We're going to be talking about the Flash. Jordan and I saw it, and we have lots of things to say about it. But also expanding on that, this movie really potentially sets up the future of the DCU. Or unlocks a ton of possibilities for the DCU that I'm really looking forward to talking about with Jordan. So that's going to be on the menu tonight. Before we get into anything, we're going to have to first shout out our top tier patrons, Tim C, Yusuf H, and did I say Tim C? Tim B, Yusuf H, and Joe C. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. All of our other patrons, you guys are awesome too. Thank you guys for supporting us each month. On that topic, we did talk like a couple weeks ago about how we kind of revamped the tiers and some of the rewards, Nick, right? I believe we went over that on an episode. So we put out a poll a couple weeks ago to see what kind of series you guys would like for Patreon episodes, and we had Patreon exclusive companion series, Patreon exclusive movie reviews, so pretty much like really in-depth, almost like video essay type reviews of movies, or video game play-alongs. Those were the options, and video game play-alongs won by a massive landslide. So what we're going to be doing for pretty much the remainder of the year is a play-along of the 2012 or 2013, I don't remember which year, remake of Tomb Raider. So what we're going to be doing is each month we're going to play through 4 chapters. We're going to get together. We're going to go over our experiences, review the game for those chapters, the story, talk all about all that fun stuff together. So July, we will be covering chapters 1 through 4, August 5 through 8, September 9 through 12, so on and so forth, all the way till we get to the end of the game in November. So if you are not a tier 3 patron member, you can head over to Showboy or patreon.com/Showboys podcast. sign up today so you can get access to this lovely, batch of episodes we're going to be doing. And if you don't want to be tier 3, that's totally fine. There's other tiers there at different price points. We also upload a lot of we don't like to say random content, but it is kind of random content that we can't really fit into our categories of usual releases. That stuff gets thrown on Patreon too, at starting at tier 2, I believe. So check it out, patreon.com/showboyspodcast. And if you sign up today, Jordan will come and rub your feet for you. So
I have very soft hands.
he does. He just had a baby, so there's a lot of baby lotioning going on. So I bet those hands are probably pretty soft.
You bet.
All right. Well, The Flash.
10 years in the making.
Jeff.
10?
And he thought the foot massagers were his job. We got competition, my friend. But yes, The Flash. This came out last week? Exactly 1 week ago.
Yeah.
The latest entry in the DC film universe. One of 3 remaining DC EU slated movies, right, Jordan? So we had Shazam, Black Adam. Those stayed on the slate when James Gunn took over. The Flash stayed on, obviously, because that just came out. But also Aquaman 2 and Blue Beetle, right? Those were...
So this is the second to last movie for the DC EU that Snyder did. After this we have Aquaman 2, and then that's it. Blue Beetle represents the first one of the James Gunn universe.
Okay. I thought 5 was too many. But yeah, so what did you think? I guess let's just go overall first impressions. What do you think, Jordan?
I had a lot of fun. I think Kelly and I left just laughing our butts off.
Hilarious.
And it wasn't. I can't imagine. I really can't imagine it being much of anything else, because it had the elements of what was ridiculous as far as the time travel, the insane slow-mo speed scenes, everything above, but it had some crazy drama with between him and his mom, and the different elements that get carried on with that. But overall, I thought it was a great movie. It was a great so long to the DCU, in my opinion. And as much as I love Aquaman, I kind of hope it doesn't come out. I'd rather just jump right into the next thing.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen, because it's got to be completely done at this point. But yeah, I would say first, Nick, what were your yeah, rest in peace, or not, whatever. Nick, general thoughts here on The Flash before we get into spoiler territory.
Sure. I'm actually excited to watch it. I have probably some DC movies to catch up on, but I like the fast superheroes. So like what's his face from X-Men? That part of X-Men, that's like one of my favorite scenes, like all time, especially superhero scenes. Like that's when he's going through the mansion and that song's playing, like that's just top tier stuff. So anytime like the Flash has been in previous DC movies, I've really liked him, just because I like his concept as a character, and then even like the time thing. So I just like seeing that stuff. It's the same reason I like Ant-Man, because they get into like weird quantum stuff. Like anytime superhero stuff explores that, I'm all about it. So I'm excited to watch this when it drops on Max. So
so
you
weird.
said that so aggressively.
I know.
Max.
Like, no, you have to say it aggressively. I don't know how else you would say
true. You lost 3 whole letters in the title. You got to say those
HBO
last 3
Max.
pretty. Yeah.
Max.
Goat Max.
Max. It's that, or you're like calling your dog, Max, get over here.
Yeah. Oh man. I would probably agree with you, Jordan. It was pretty fun. I thought some of the humor was like really kind of awful, but some parts were actually genuinely funny, which I'll talk about once we get into spoiler territory because I don't want to really say anything about the actual story until we get in there. I think after seeing all of the hype that it was getting by like James Gunn and Tom Cruise and
Maverick.
Steven Spielberg and all those people, I was expecting like just like the freaking Inception or Interstellar of superhero movies, right? But I walked away just being like, yeah, it's pretty good. Which I guess I shouldn't really have expected anything else other than that.
Yeah, they got you.
They did. They got me. I was really satisfied with. I thought the length of the movie was fine, justified. I don't think it really moved slowly. No pun intended. I enjoyed the cameos. I enjoyed the Flashpoint stories. Also, always awesome. And I really like what it could potentially do for James Gunn and the DCU as a whole. With that being said, I put up a poll on the YouTube community page. So guys and gals, 1, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and 2, make sure you check on the community tab every so often because we throw polls and stuff like that up all the time. But I asked, did you see The Flash? What did you think? And what did it do for your outlook on the DCU? So we had, yes, I saw it. Super excited about the DCU. Hold on a second. I gotta make this a little bigger. Yes, I saw it. It was terrible, and the DCU is doomed. Yes, I saw it. It was mid, and the DCU is mid. Didn't see it, but planned to see it. And last but not least, definitely not least, didn't see it, and you couldn't pay me to see it. The community has spoken. 78% said they have not seen it, and you could not pay them to see it. So not a great outlook from the community. Guys, you didn't even leave a comment explaining yourself. I got to know why you couldn't be paid to see it. I mean, the movie would have to be pretty terrible to refuse,
That's most of America right
dollars.
now, especially college campuses, though. Oh yeah, they're horrible. It's horrible. It's the worst thing in the world. I hate these people. Oh, why? Because no reason. No comment given.
Yeah, so we had 11% say they saw it and they're super excited about the DCU. 11% said they haven't seen it but plan to, and then 78% want absolutely nothing to do with this movie. And you brought up a good point in our text chain. Like, is that Ezra Miller related because he's like a dingus, like whack job? Or is that like the stigma of the failure, I guess, conceptually of the DC franchise as a whole, everything post Nolanverse? Or, I don't know, what do you think the reasoning is? Do either of those options kind of like stand out to you?
I think it's very, very evident. It's a combination of things. You have the Snyderverse base fans who don't see it as like a purist to the Snyderverse, so they don't want to see it. They'll protest against it, but they're also kind of at war with themselves too, because like, oh, it does plenty of Snyderverse stuff. Let's go see it. So that's already like an immediate divided faction. Then you have a large sum of people who really dislike Ezra Miller and the actions that they take, just almost publicly daily for a matter of months.
Yeah.
Then you couple that with knowing that this is going to erase something and start something brand new. I think less people are probably paying attention to that point because they're just waiting for something to really hook them into it. But I would deem most of the insanity towards Ezra Miller and the actions that they've done. I mean, this is you look at what's happened with Bud Light, Target, all these different things. It's probably a little bit of an echo of a product of that in some case.
Yeah, that makes sense. Nick, do you have any thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, I'm just trying to. I guess I think I generally lean toward like I don't care what like the person does. Now, obviously, if it was something like so terrible that like even like seeing the person, maybe that's how it invokes a lot of people's emotions. Like they see him and they're just so torn, and like it bothers them just seeing the person. But generally, like it is a movie and like he is acting, right? And like that doesn't even faze me. At least I don't even know what he did, or do I care? So maybe that's like another thing that gets me by in life is like I just don't care what it was he did or what his issues are.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to let it ruin probably what could be a good movie and or a cool thing. And I try to think of like, who was it recently? Wasn't Dave Chappelle? I forget who it was, but they're talking about like Michael Jackson, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just like the like periodic time of just like trying to like cancel him, right? And it's just like, but that one song or that, they start listening to things and like the holdout is like forever there. It might have been Chappelle and they got up to like 30 people, right, who were making claims, and then you're still like, I don't know, like I don't believe it. I'm not. So,
but have you heard Annie? Like,
yeah, so to me, some degree, like if the art is outweighing like the impact, like obviously certain people like whether it's comedy or music, like they make huge impacts on culture. So if like that is much greater than anything else that they've done, sure, like maybe in isolated pockets it's hurt and damaged people, but not everyone has to be that way. They can still enjoy the art.
Yeah,
but
I'll
real quick. I think it's completely fair outlook. I think a lot of people should probably have that mindset. For me personally, this movie was completed. It was done. And while it was out there in limbo, a lot of these actions are taken. Sure, there's rewrites. There's some reshoots that were done, obviously, which movie doesn't have reshoots these days. Do I think Ezra should be the Flash in the future? No. Right. I don't think Warner Brothers should bring them back. But this movie, Ezra was impressive in this. There's to echo back to what I said. Kelly and I laughed our asses off in this movie, and I think we are maybe the minority, especially if you didn't find a lot of it humorous, Mike. I mean, there were times where her and I were like laughing so hard at stuff, and no one else was laughing at all. It almost felt like we were being disruptive, and I mean, I had tears coming out of my eyes. I mean, she did too.
That doesn't surprise me in one iota of my body.
Yeah,
you laughing at something.
Yeah,
That's how you get through the pain, Jordan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was. I don't know. I think they landed the humor pretty damn well. And what's interesting in this movie too, and I didn't expect it to stay this high, but the audience score is still 84%.
Oh wow, that actually is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, because the 10 people that saw it like loved it.
Yeah.
8 out of 10.
5,000 plus verified, Nick. 5,000.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
No, that's amazing for a DC film. I mean, that's amazing.
Mike's just
really,
like, I'm surprised that many people went.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a weird campaign, obviously, having like Stephen King, Tom Cruise talking about this beforehand. What vested interest do they have? Well, obviously Stephen King has it. It all ties together. There's a little bit of Top Gun's mentioned in the movie, so it ties it over to Maverick. So were they there strategically for that? Probably.
Yeah, probably.
But I also kind of believe them because it is definitely a very different superhero movie compared to everything you've seen. And this brings you back. Obviously, we'll get into it to the '89 Batman. a character that I'm sure that they loved, right? Seeing him, done, modern day, little, much more spice to him.
Yeah.
I believe him. I kind of believe him.
Yeah. So before we get into the actual movie itself, like spoiler territory, I'm gonna get on my soapbox for a minute and go back to what Nick was talking about separating the the art from the artist. And I 1000% agree with Nick. Like, you have to do something absolutely heinous to like make me not want to see this movie, for example. And Ezra, like, he's like a literal nut job. Like, this guy is crazy. But I don't think he did he didn't like murder somebody, for example. He didn't
Not yet.
go like not yet. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I'm just saying he didn't allegedly do the, he wasn't accused of like the Michael Jackson stuff, right? Which is, if true, absolutely disgusting. But like the fact that people would take a stand against Ezra Miller and not go see The Flash because he's a whack job. I bet, if any of them are sports fans, they probably still rooted for Ray Lewis and like loved him on the Ravens. That dude allegedly literally murdered somebody in a nightclub, like while he was playing.
Some
same people
like, it was a bad call, man. It was a bad call.
and that's the weird thing. I think maybe that was Bill Burr too, where they're like the inconsistent it's Chris Rock, the inconsistent outrage that was in his latest stand-up, where it's like Chris Brown, for example, like numerous situations there, but still, like, dude cranks out music, people go to his concerts, no one really cares. He gets a buy.
That's
just like a lot of the athletes do.
I'm gonna make a wild claim that probably is true, but it's a wild, unbased claim. But I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, like,
America.
Oh yeah, I fit right in. A large percentage of your artists or creators probably are scumbag people, and like, to, like Nick said, have selective outrage on what you're gonna cancel, or whether it be a person or a project they're related to, is just, I don't know, silly. Like, you need to be outraged by everything, or not really anything. You can't just be like, pick and choose.
And Jordan made a good point there too, where it was like, this was all, they made this movie before all that happened. So to me, that like 100% gets a buy, because I'm not like watching this movie knowing that between takes he's like doing whatever, like, you know what I mean? So the same thing can be said from, even like an artist. Like, if an artist is actively engaging in something you don't approve of, and it's probably reasonable to like start to not like their music, because it's probably their art is gonna start to reflect that in some cases. So after like a certain period of time, like, right? Or if you're listening back and it came out that like, oh yeah, when they're making this album, like, now we know the truth of really what was going on. That's that kind of freaks me out. So that stuff's fair. But like in the context of like before him like losing his marbles, like, this is all post filming of the movie. So like entirely it was a different person without what seems to be mental health issues.
The ending was reshot. So you want to protest it, watch like 97% of it, then just leave.
I'm out.
Okay, I just saw it.
Your camera is glitching?
Being crazy. I'm glitching, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think music's like a totally different like can of worms, because like they're like, with an actor, they're portraying something that's already written, right? The story is already told, they're just acting it out. Whereas a musician, Nick, in your example, like, that their life bleeds into their art, right? And they're writing the lyrics, they're writing the story, the narrative of their music. So like, that stuff can creep in and be like super noticeable, or like when you go back and you're like, oh my gosh, like, oh, that totally changes everything about this. So yeah, I could totally see what you're saying there. That could definitely get messy.
Yeah, and just recently, like in the last week, I was talking with someone down at the coffee shop. Shout out M&H Beans down in North Canton. So Red Hot Chili Peppers came on and basically like turned the station. He's like, I wish like the autoplay would I could just tell it to never play Red Hot Chili Peppers. And basically, the music's good, but he was like, I watched like a documentary on Anthony Kiedis, and like that dude just like owns his scummery, and like it just irks me, right? And if you know, and like the artist also owns their like debauchery, and it's been prevalent in their music as well, like lyrics and all that, that's a fair, that's fair to me, for you not to like an artist like that, especially when they own it and stuff.
I can't get over your headphone cord because like you're right at that perfect
crazy
spot right there.
That's not the only time it's happened, right? It's like he's done other things. Nick's done other things that have connected to.
Yeah,
I think,
or maybe somebody else.
Speaking of
I melt the art.
Life, going into their art, we can see is very evident tonight with Nick and his thumbnail creation.
Did this on purpose.
Yeah. All right. So we got that out of the way. We're spoiler warning now. Here's your spoiler alert. Everything past this point, we're going to get into the story and whatnot. So if you care, you pause, come back after you watch the movie, or fast forward. If you're watching this not live, there will probably be timestamps when we jump to the future of the DCU. So no pressure, Nick, if you want to make sure we're doing timestamps.
Or we can, actually, Mike and I talked about it before. We're going to like just make up a movie as we go because you've never seen it before, Nick.
That's true. That's true. He'll never know if we're telling the truth or not.
See if you can trip me up on like a detail, and I can like totally get me to endorse something that like I probably shouldn't have endorsed.
When the Flash like runs up the Statue of Liberty in through like her eyes, and her eyes light up, and she comes alive and starts walking around.
And then they're like, Jerry Fallon, what are you doing?
Right. Waving the torch.
Don't get too fancy. I'm gonna miss a lot of references already.
Yeah, so one thing I want to talk about right off the bat, mainly because Jordan is our comic expert. I've read a little bit of in the past, the Flash, New 52. I essentially like started my comic life in the New 52 series. So those are kind of all I know of the DC characters. And in my opinion, I think New 52 was really cool for a lot of those characters. A lot of those runs were really great. But I just, my one thing, it isn't even really about this movie. It's just as how they've written the Flash in the DCU as a whole. They just make him, I'm cool with the goofy factor because he is kind of goofy in the comics, but like they just make him seem really dumb for being like a really smart guy. It's almost like the Thor factor where like they're just really
it's not that bad. They just
but you know what I'm trying to say though.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. The biggest miscast in my opinion for Zack Snyder was Ezra Miller as Barry Allen. I think Ezra Miller has his place in the universe, maybe not as Barry Allen. It's maybe like a Ray Palmer as the Atom or something. I don't know, but it was a very odd thing, and he worked in a group of people, being that kind of the quirkiness. Doing it himself, he works really well with himself. This is the one movie where I actually felt like he was kind of like Barry Allen. He was able to sell the character of Barry Allen, and before that, every time it was just it took me out of almost every movie I saw Ezra in, except the Snyder cut. The Snyder cut just added so much to the character that made me start like saying, "Oh, this is actually possible." Yeah. But the blue lightning versus the gold, that always took me out of it a little bit. When I think of the Flash, I always see the yellow and gold lightning. Mm-hmm. The blue was something it's been there before, and I think the yellow fits the character better. He's got yellow lightning bolts on him, for God's sake. Why not
Right.
make the lightning yellow?
I did like the use of the two colors in this movie, though, to
Yes.
differentiate the two berries.
It was damn good. There's a lot of decisions that were made like that really complemented each other.
Kind of sounds like can he pick the color? Maybe that's it. That's how Frieza works in Dragon Ball Z. He can pick his form's colors.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So every time he finds a new form, he like gets to think of like what color it should be. So maybe that's what Barry Allen can do. He's like, you know what? Today, I'm feeling purple.
Yeah, I think it's for him. For Barry Allen, it's more so. Yeah, it's a mood ring. It's more so like what part of the Speed Force is he tapping into? It's kind of how it started out. Although when they both have it, that theory kind of falls short. But no, I'm not totally sure. I would almost say that the suit itself, with the gold lines that go through it, you know, maybe that like, you know, brings it in and makes the color happen. But as I'm
good coloring, dye.
Yeah, right. Or like it travels through the suit. Like I think Bruce made the suit for him, and it's like it harnesses the Speed Force in a way and projects it and does a lot of fun stuff when you see the movie. But yeah, but you know, the New 52. Talking about the New 52, it was really strange to what happens in Flashpoint. Obviously, you have more of a classic. I wouldn't say classic, but an older school Barry Allen outfit, just solid red with just like the yellow, lightning going around his wrists, his ankles, and such. When Flashpoint happens and he returns to what he thinks is a seemingly normal universe, his suit's a little bit different. And Barry's suit in this movie kind of reflects it. It has the the yellow pinstripes going around, and then all of a sudden you see Batman with the black not pinstripes, but like kind of accents to his armor, and it really makes you realize that this is a different. It's his universe, but it's slightly different. Like he messed things up so much that he can't get it back perfectly. Yeah. But he needs to just stop. He has to just stop what he was doing and figure this out and go forward. So, the suit reflected the New 52 a lot. Between that and Rebirth started out with something similar to this too.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Different topic for a different day, but I also don't like how they did my boy Arthur Curry in the movie universe, because he also is a big old meathead dingus, where Arthur is such a cool dude.
I thought he was fine at the end of Aquaman, but they brought him back to dingus mode at the end of this one. Anyway.
Yep. But yeah, so how do you think they executed the Flashpoint story here in this movie? So actually, do you want to just summarize maybe for those who aren't as well versed in the comic side of things, who just went and saw this movie and were like, "Oh, that was a cool story."
Yeah,
do you want to let them know like what the background of the Flashpoint story is comic wise and how they were able to execute that in the movie?
Yeah. The premise of Flashpoint is Barry understanding that he can go back to the past and change things. This movie conceptually also has it in the same mindset to where he says, "I can go back, I can save my mom," and that becomes his point of traveling through time. Now, in Flashpoint, it is more of a time travel more than like a separate universe type thing. But in Flashpoint, he goes back, saves his mom, and then he returns to a completely different world. His mom's alive. He doesn't have his powers. Bruce Wayne is not Batman, which is a big difference to this movie. There's characteristics that are different. You have the expanded universe in Flashpoint where the Amazons are at war with the Atlanteans, and their war is going mainland, and major countries are basically, the trenches from World War One. The no man's land. The countries are destroyed, and you get to see the aspects of that war. So Barry basically saves his mom and creates a whole world of just destruction and ruin from just that one simple act. And so Flashpoint's about him trying to, collect an idea of how he can fix things. This movie does that to the aspect of he going back to save his mom. Hopefully that kind of encompasses it.
Yes.
It's different, obviously. It's way different than that. But that's just the outline of Flashpoint.
Yeah, and you could see. So this kind of started at. Was this in the normal Justice League, or was this added in the Snyder cut? But where Barry discovers that he has this ability to reverse time through the Speed Force during the final battle of the Snyder cut.
Yep.
So also for people who may have been complaining about the story, the pacing, and like all this of the Flash, perhaps maybe they didn't watch the Snyder cut to like fully understand like where this movie's story kind of stemmed from. But yeah, essentially at the end of the Snyder cut of the Justice League,
So good.
Barry in that final battle realizes he can go back in time. In the battle, it's just a few seconds. He goes back in time and helps save the day. And then that gets the wheels spinning in his mind where, oh, like if I can go back in time like that, like maybe I could figure out how to like really go back in time and maybe I can save my mom. This is all also brought on his father's appeal date in court is coming up in the next day or two. So all this is kind of fresh in his mind. So he gets this terrible idea. And we actually have like a really great conversation between Barry and Bruce there at the beginning of the movie. I really loved it. Where Barry's telling Bruce his plan and Bruce is like, hey man, like, if we did, essentially paraphrasing, if we didn't go through the stuff we go through, like we wouldn't be the people we are today. So like, even though those scars, like they hurt, that's what, those things make us who we are.
Right.
And maybe you don't want to change that because those are like defining moments of your person.
Which Bruce knows he will, right? It's interesting because in Batman vs Superman, he saw Barry traveling through time. So it doesn't matter what he says, he knows he's going to, but he can't stop him either. He can't stop him. I know.
I want that so bad.
I know. That's what Deathstroke. Oh my god.
But yeah, so that's kind of what spurs the Flashpoint story forward here in this movie. And I thought it was easing its way into the time travel moment. I thought it was really cool. What do you think of the Chronodome?
The Chronodome, yeah, it was interesting. I can't say I loved it, but I mean, good for them for thinking of that. And if you look at the bottom of the screen, there's a little bit of a sands of time. I don't know if you notice that. There's definitely like sands moving backwards and forwards. But there's actually, before we get into it, real quick, I do want to say something. When in the beginning scene, we got to talk about the beginning scene a little bit. Ben Affleck's Batman is just phenomenal again. It is phenomenal. You have what's the Falcone family just
Falcons,
yeah, they just stole
the serum or whatever.
Yeah, it's the biological weapon, chemical biological weapon, and they're speeding down the road, totally reckless, like in like Hummers, and you have the ship from the Justice League fly over, and as soon as it goes over the back of them or over the top of them, Ben Affleck and the Bat-Cycle just launches out, hits the ground in his gray and blue outfit. And it's, what they did in this movie, taking Batman and you like only ever see him during the day. With like conceptually, you're like, this guy's looking an idiot. Like, like it's like, it reminds me of Beverly Hills Ninja. He wears the white ninja outfit at night and the black one during the day. It's like, you never picture Batman outside during the day. But if you were, I guess you'd do it in a light gray and light blue outfit, right? So that whole scene's amazing. And watching Ben Affleck do, stunt double, whatever, do everything of what Batfleck does in the other movies. You get to see him like punch the lights out of a couple of guys. One guy's so scared of him, he just dives straight out of the car because he literally probably kills himself. Yeah. Doesn't care. He just wants out of the car because he does not want to face Batfleck. So many wonderful scenes with that. Obviously Wonder Woman, she's gorgeous and fun whenever she shows up. That happens obviously prior. There's that scene in the building with the babies.
Yeah.
Having a newborn or an infant. I was like, Kelly and I were like cringing. We're like wrapping our arms around each other. Like
I specifically loved it when he put the baby in the microwave.
I mean that's.
Now we'll let Nick sit there and stew on that, whether that's like a real thing that happened or if we're just trying to throw you off.
Or how about the dog? It's like looking at the camera as it's falling too. You know, that's a fun one. That's a fun one, Nick. All in slow mo, mind you. All
I love
beautiful slow mo. Bunch of babies just falling out of a major building.
While we're talking about, we brought the Chronodome up and we're talking about the slow mo. We have to just point out the elephant in the room. The CGI was terrible.
It was rough.
It was really bad.
There's a lot of rough spots.
And Andy provided a reason of which I do not buy. I think he got flack and then thought of the team thought of a reason to put out to potentially explain it, and that reason is straight garbage and they should have just been like, yeah, sorry. But
which reason did he give?
The reason he gave was they intentionally made the CGI during certain parts poor quality to help the audience understand how the Flash was seeing things during those moments of being in the Speed Force and stuff.
Gotcha.
I'm like, I don't care, because one, it's the Flash, so I'm sure his eyes have probably adjusted to his super speed powers, and regardless of how crazy things would look
super speed
while tapping into the Speed Force, I'm sure it's not going to be like PS3 graphics. Just gonna throw that out there.
There's some scenes that are much better than the others, which shows a little bit of inconsistency to his excuse, right?
Yeah.
I will say, there is that, the clear idea that you travel faster than 300 miles per hour, things start to look cartoony and weird because of the distortion effects. I don't know if he said that or not, but that's the only thing I could use to give him a crutch on anything. But there's some really bad CGI. There's some really good CGI too.
Yeah,
and people do overlook that.
It's really the Chronodome. Like, that's where it looks. It looks bad.
Pretty rough. It's pretty rough.
But most other parts are passable, if not fine. I gotta say, since we're talking about slow motion and like Speed Force and stuff, I will say one part I laughed hysterically at that nobody else laughed at is after he transfers his powers to Barry 2.0, and he's in the lobby and he's like slowly trying to run while doing the dumb like Sasquatch arm motions. I was like crying.
When
everyone was looking at me like I was an idiot. I was like, they're making fun of the run. That's so great.
That's where everyone started laughing for us. Which we were laughing with that too. But where we were laughing super hard that no one else laughed is when the electricity was going through him and he was getting like lit up and his tooth flies out. Kelly and I were the only ones laughing like hysterically at this. And it's like slow motion, like electricity just flying, and like all the chemicals are exploding, and all these great things. And then it's this epic scene of the electricity and just the lights, and his tooth goes flying out and lands in the other Barry's mouth, and like he swallows it. But all of a sudden, the slow mo cuts, and they both just like hit their knees and fall on the ground, like on their face. And there's just papers just going like this, and we just start laughing so hard. Because it looks like they just both passed out at the same time. And that leads up, obviously, to what you're talking about. He thinks he can, like, face to the wall, and he runs straight into the wall. There's some of it is – it's almost – like, I know it's weird, but, like, it's the fact that, like, some theaters, like, just laughed hysterically at it and some didn't. That shows, like, some dynamics, I think, to the humor. It's not, like, completely sellout humor. It's probably kind of like a –
I loved all the phasing – gags they pulled. I laughed at every one of those. Those are classic. I really did love this was all CGI, but I loved them showing without like dialogue exposition what phasing was for those who didn't know what he was doing, when he would just be like and like be able to put his hand through solid objects, but like going down to the molecular level and seeing like them split apart and go around all of the things he was passing through. I was like, that is a really great way to explain something without like explaining something.
Right.
But But yeah, one last thing about, and then we'll get back into like what we thought. But I will forever defend Batfleck as my favorite Batman, and I had to do so on the way home from the family movie watching.
Yeah.
I went with the father-in-law and 2 brother-in-laws, and I forget how it came up, but I was like, "Oh yeah, Ben Affleck is 100% my favorite Batman. He rules." And they're like, "Oh, are you kidding me?" Like, well, 1, shut up. None of you watch comic movies, so you can go suck an egg. 2, yes, he's amazing. Like, this Batman is the best Batman we've seen on screen. I don't care. I get
Did they have
Christian
their
Bale.
picks?
Get out of here. What?
Did they have their picks?
The classic. Oh, Christian Bale was great. Like, he was all right, but this is the best Batman I think we've gotten in movies. Like, right here. My one brother-in-law, I will give him a pass because he was like, "Well, I mean, Michael Keaton's amazing." I'm like, "Well, you're right."
It's a fair argument after this movie. It's a fair argument.
Yes. But yeah, so back to the Flash here. Was there anything in particular that stuck out to you, Jordan, that you like really loved or like kind of really cringed at that they did? Like, how'd you feel about the Zod story being the crisis that the Flashpoint kind of like centered around?
I liked it.
Steel?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh man, this movie sounds so good. Love Man of Steel. Like,
so what they do, and Michael Keaton does this better than I've seen in any movie. He explains how time works better than any other movie, and what happens when you split it and you keep splitting it, or you go back and try to fix one you already split. And he uses spaghetti as an idea. And what happens is his ultimate explanation of it is basically this is what could happen at the end if you keep doing this. And he explains like what his reality is without even knowing it, which is really cool. It becomes an amalgam of all these different timelines and movies and different things. Like you think that this is the Batman '89 world, just 29 years later. And in some cases, I think some people believe it is, but there's some things that don't make sense with that. And I don't think it is. It's probably part like a one of those worlds like forked off into this being it. But I don't think it's literally Michael Keaton from the '89 movie. So what they did with that was phenomenal. What they did with just talking about pop culture in this parallel world was phenomenal. They talk about Back to the Future.
Oh yeah.
And if you know anything about Back to the Future, what they talk about is freaking phenomenal. They talk about actors like, he talks about Michael J. Fox being Marty McFly, and they're like, he's not Marty McFly, and then I forget the actor's escaping.
It's the guy who was originally cast.
He was originally cast as Marty McFly. He's Marty McFly in that universe, and he's like, what? How's he even possible? So
and they're like, oh, Michael J. Fox was in Footloose.
Yeah.
They're like, what do you mean? Kevin Bacon's in that movie. Like, no, Kevin Bacon's in Top Gun or something like that.
Yeah. There's so many things that they do, just chaining this crazy world together. And
Kevin Bacon was in Top Gun. That's the best.
I could see it. I could see it.
The thing, that's the thing is, you could see all of those. Those could all be like,
And so what happens in this world too is, they try to like, okay, where's Superman? Like, who the hell is Superman? Like, oh God, you don't know who Superman is? So the idea for Barry to give his powers over to the other Barry, it was super important because he needed more help to fight with the threat that was happening. And they can't find anyone else to be there. He's like, who's Wonder Woman here? Oh, who's Wonder Woman? I don't know. They try to get a hold of Arthur Curry, Aquaman, was never born.
No, but Nick's favorite simple man just trying to travel around the universe made an appearance.
He did.
Yeah.
Django, Boba.
Yeah.
Really?
He plays
Tamir Morrison?
Yeah, he's Thomas Curry,
Commander
Aquaman's
Rex.
father in Aquaman movie. So yeah, he made
very
a
nice.
brief little appearance.
Captain Rex, the man of a million clones.
Yeah. If you haven't seen Aquaman, Nick, you should see Aquaman too.
I've seen Aquaman.
Okay.
I think. Yes, I have.
I feel like you
said
have
that so confidently, and then you're like, I think.
Like, it doesn't feel like you have for some reason.
I loved the explanation of time though, and just for like example for Nick. So like,
what's the explanation?
In the MCU, they explain it where when you go back in time, you just create like a new branch from the timeline. But the way that they use it, I'll just use pens because I don't have spaghetti noodles. But instead of creating a branch like this, it changes the beginning and the end. So instead of branching off, you're making different, a whole different road altogether. And there are still points where the timelines cross. That's like inevitable. That moment is always going to happen all the time. And then
is that moment shared or?
Yeah. Okay. And then he goes on to say, like, he plops down a bowl of wet noodles in the bowl because he was making spaghetti to eat. And he's like, eventually, if you don't stop, like, you're going to end up with this, where everything's just all just a big old tangled mess.
Yeah, you cause ripples
in the
really
past
cool
and future.
Yeah. It's and the one would if Michael Keaton if that Michael Keaton's in a world where he's never experienced anything with extraordinary powers, why the hell does he even think of time like that? Right? Like, what has he experienced to make him think of that? There's something, I don't know. There's something really interesting about that Batman, because he gets to a point, Nick, where he's talking about, oh, Gotham's actually the safest place to live in the world.
Yeah, that's why he's like all old and disheveled, retired. Because Gotham doesn't need Batman anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he fixed it. But, of course. I mean, Michael Keaton. Again, everyone always shits on Affleck for this, but Michael Keaton killed the Joker. He killed everyone at Axis Chemicals. Kills all his people. So maybe he did have it figured out. He kills all his bad guys, and Gotham's the safest place in the world.
It's safe now.
Yeah, well,
go figure.
But no, I like that explanation of time too, because then it gets them off the hook of like having to do all the crazy set stuff of like the '89 Batman, because like, yes, this is the '89 Batman, but it changes the beginning of the timeline too. So it's like different looks.
There's subtle changes too,
things like that.
The Batcave's a little different, but obviously it has the Tim Burton, like metal patches with the bolts going through it. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Then he even has that armor room, right? Yep. That they have in the Batman '89, but it's not like in a secluded room. It's in a room that has like sunlight coming into it. Mm-hmm. So the kitchen's completely different. The big table is that's never been shown before. Even Wayne Manor is a little bit different than the original one as well.
And it's the same like outside as the Snyder Manor, right?
No, it's closer. It's closer to the '89 one.
Okay,
but it's still. I mean, obviously, can you do the same one? I don't know, but were they trying to? Right. I think they're trying to do a heavy influence from it, and so it's close, but it's not exactly it. But damn, it's good.
Yeah, but yeah, Nick, the central story of Man of Steel becomes the central story here of.
Oh, it's the best.
That would have been great if this took place in Central City, but no, it took place in not Central City, which would have been amazing. Yeah, so Zod's back, and like Jordan said, nobody in this universe or timeline.
Michael Shannon there?
Yep.
They just used footage from.
No, he came back.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
I mean, it awesome. Looked like PlayStation 3 Michael Shannon at times, but it's great that it was actually him acting and saying new lines and stuff. But
what was the other? Was it Batman vs Superman? Which other movie basically like references Man of Steel like heavily, like the
Batman vs Superman?
Okay, yeah.
When his corpse became Doomsday.
Oh
yeah.
Man,
yeah.
Man of Steel's so good.
But yeah, like it was super cool that being like, who the heck's Superman? Who's Wonder Woman? Like, and when he gets to like Batman, the one roommate's like, "I'm Batman," and he's like, "So you've heard of Batman?" And they're like, "Well, yeah." So at least that's where Batman came into play. But yeah, instead of Superman, I loved, having the explanation of why we get Supergirl instead of Superman. Yeah. Super cool way to also rip Henry Cavill and like write him out of the DCU. But what do you think of that? What do you think of Supergirl as a whole? I know you generally hate women, but I would love to hear what you think about.
I don't even know. I don't know what you're talking about. I have a big Wonder Woman collection, man. I love.
Jeez.
Sorry.
I hate Captain Marvel. Guilty as charged. Will I see the Marvels? No.
Oh, you only hate Disney women. That's right.
I hate a lot of Disney women. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. That's true. Minnie
Hey,
Mouse
you
is
caught
cool.
me.
Yeah, I like Princess Leia when she's not flying in space.
That's Disney.
Not dying in space. Yeah.
Not flying in space. Yeah. Man, there's not many Disney women I like. Okay, let's get out of this subject. What was the question?
Supergirl.
What do you think of
Yeah,
Supergirl,
Supergirl,
and
Supergirl.
how they wrote out Superman in this
Yes,
timeline?
it's a interesting. So she's being held captive by the Russians. They found her when she crashed there or whatever.
Naturally.
Which is interesting because that kind of plays into Superman Red Son. You know, like they have him grow up in Soviet Russia, but instead of like keeping him captive, they kind of foster him and nurture him, and he kind of becomes the next political leader in Soviet Russia.
So Putin.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. Except his name's Putin. No, I was kidding. Instead of Kal-El, but it's a they keep her locked up and in this like ball where I can only assume that there's like a red light in there, kind of replicating a red sun, so they know how to like dim her powers. They don't really show that, but I'm assuming this. So I love how they did that. I love how they kind of took that in the Flashpoint comic book and live action movie. The U.S. government was holding Kal-El captive, and a similar thing. That's why I kind of reference it to Red Sun, because they're leveraging the Russians for this. As far as I think her character was a little rushed in the aspect of getting her powers, like understanding them and all of a sudden mastering and going forward.
Calling her Mary Sue.
And I can't. If you see the movie, you can't. You really can't.
Okay.
Because she literally fails every time. So it's the polar opposite, and it's cool. She has her lines and her stories rushed a little bit. But when she's interacting with Zod, and it's like 2.5. Yeah. When she interacts with Zod, that's some of the best dialogue, in my opinion. The way she discovers, her heat vision, and she's rapidly discovering her powers through rage, which is great also because in the comics, Kara's a little stronger than Clark. She's just naturally stronger. She's a stronger Kryptonian, just like how Zod would be stronger than Clark in some aspects if he did things right. Although he's more smart tactically, but anyway. So her discovery of that's really, really cool. And her rage is cool. And she also becomes a Red Lantern in the comics because she's a pissed off chick most of the time. But
right,
I liked it. Would I see a whole movie based around her? I don't know. I don't think so. I think her character works great for the bowl of spaghetti, right? That just happens to like kind of modge everything together. I think it's great for what it is, and it's one of those things I hope they don't continue on. So in case they ruin it, I liked it overall.
Yeah. So I wasn't wrong. No, I'm just kidding.
With what? I liked it. I liked her.
I didn't even really think much about her like discovering her powers because maybe I didn't catch, or maybe I just didn't assume that she like as soon as she landed, she was put in the Soviet scrotum.
I don't know. It's hard to know because how the hell did they catch her?
Right. Yeah, that's also true. I think I got the impression that somehow they probably caught her because she was like a dumb girl. And then,
I was just gonna say, were you trying to call her stupid?
No, but somehow they caught her like she was already in. The reason I think she was already like in full
free shoes. It's a box with a stick underneath it.
Oh jeez. The reason I get the impression that she already like understood her capabilities, her powers and stuff was because she said that she was sent there to protect Kal-El. So I'm like, okay, so she must have already been I don't know their age difference, but with that I was like, okay, so she probably already like somehow was caught and wasn't like hasn't grown up in the scrotum.
Right. And
So to
in
speak.
all fairness, Kryptonians know underneath, especially Man of Steel, that that if you're underneath the yellow sun, you'll be a god to them, right? So
Yeah.
so maybe she didn't know that coming in. Very
Yeah.
possible.
And that's item number 2, where I'll let Nick learn when the movie comes to Max whether the Soviet scrotum is actually in the movie or if we're just making that up for you right now. So just store that one in the bank, Nick.
He's like, that's the one thing I actually believe.
Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, I appreciated how they did that. I thought it was really cool how when Supergirl talks to Zod and learns the fate of Clark, how they did find him in his pod, and they weren't able to get the DNA from him, the code, so he didn't make it.
Right.
Like, oh, that is so brutal.
It's brutal. It's brutal.
Yeah, and I do love the rage in her encounters with Zod and all the different loops. I thought it was awesome. The fight scenes between her and Zod were so cool. I love when she's just smashing him into the side of the ship with like,
Right.
it was like a big missile or something, but
Yeah.
she's just like, it was really cool.
Yeah, in Man of Steel, Zod has that classic line of just like, I will find him, right? Like he screams that, you can just feel it. In this, Supergirl has it of, what did you do? And her eyes just light up. It's so
literally
so good. Yep. Yeah.
That's such a good Zod line. That was a Zod line you're quoting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. I'm gonna go watch Man of Steel right now.
One of the things I kept hearing was, oh, Zod's underpowered, he's too weak, blah blah blah. I'm like, oh, it sucks. But he wasn't. He was he was getting thrown around by Supergirl. I mean, rightfully so. The girl's pissed off, and he's just kind of he took everything. There was never a point where he was really like, I can't go on.
Yeah, spoiler alert, kills her every time. So
every single time.
I don't know how underpowered you could be if you still kill Supergirl every single
time. Like I don't get it. Like what do you mean underpowered? He literally wins.
Yeah.
In every timeline he wins.
Yeah. What did you? Oh man, there were so many cool like Batman scenes with Keaton.
It's the cream of the crop.
When they're flying into Russia and they eject out of the bat wing, and it's like goes over the moon and makes the perfect like bat symbol in the silhouette. I'm like, come on,
obviously,
that is so awesome.
Obviously, huge callback to Tim Burton. The Batwing going up into the moon and stopping and then free falling.
Can I make one comment? I have a new friend. This is 100% a true story. Whose name is Tim Burton, but it's spelled B-E-R instead of B-U-R.
Burton.
Yeah.
Burton.
Seriously?
Yes.
Is he like aware?
Yeah. Oh, he's very aware.
Okay.
He's like, I'm one letter off from being a famous director.
How quickly did you point that out to him?
Immediately.
Yeah. and I'm proud of you for making a new friend.
Hey, thank you. I got to do it.
He hates me, but thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
I think we're friends.
Still hasn't returned any of my texts. No. But anyways, yes, continue on about more iconic Keaton stuff from this movie.
So after you delivered like the classic line, like I'm Batman, like he says to all them, and both Barrys are amazed and they're so excited at what they're seeing. They say, I'll help you find this. At this point, they don't realize Superman doesn't exist. They think they're going to rescue Superman. He says, I'll help you rescue the Superman. And after that, you're on your own, because he knows that his world's doomed if they don't rescue Superman, right? After what they're telling him. So you get to the point to where, like Mike said, the Batwing's just flying into Russia. They know exactly where they're going to rescue this Superman. And did you watch the trailer very much at all, Nick?
No.
Okay. So they all kind of like drop out of the Batwing and they're just staring at each other, like hovering. And Batman delivers the line. He's like, "You're strapped to your parachutes." And then Barry's like, "Where's yours?" And he just smiles and just free falls. And then you just see him just
with his cape.
Yeah, but he doesn't open the cape right away. We're talking like straight up
yes.
Fortnite. Like you have the battle bus just
Yeah.
hanging up in the sky, and he's just dive bombing. But like you have the Batwing in the middle, like hanging out, like going over the moon, and you have Batman just dive bombing, listening to Danny Elfman.
Yeah.
And you're just like, yeah, this is amazing. I'm ready.
I actually like ripped my shirt off during that scene. My family was not amused.
Yeah, it was an awkward drive home. Yeah.
You're right, can't borrow your shirt.
Yeah.
Walking out of the theater, just ashamed.
Yeah. I was so pumped up. I just tore the seat out of the in front of me where the guy was sitting and threw him in the seat across the theater. Yeah.
Oh man,
they're friggin' phenomenal. And then the Bears drop out. And they're falling as well. They go into the the Russian base, and one of the berries ends up getting wounded through X, Y, and Z happening, and all these soldiers come out, and they're kind of like, "Oh, hell, what are we gonna do?" When you see the story, one Barry doesn't have his powers. Okay, we didn't really touch on that earlier on, but the main Barry from we'll call him Prime Barry, his powers got transferred over to Young Barry, which is really cool because you get to see kind of the origin story of Barry Allen that we kind of never get to see from Snyder's story. Anyway, so you only have one Flash, and the Flash is wounded. The other guy is just a normal Barry, has no powers. So there's about like 20 soldiers in the room pointing their guns at him. Russian soldiers are mean mother effers.
naturally.
Yeah, they're ready to. These guys wrestle bears for fun, man.
Yeah, come on, it's all true.
And the camera just pans up to Michael Keaton, and he just delivers a line of like, "It's gonna hurt," because he knows he's about to jump in and take them all out. And that's what the cape comes out, and he glides in. And the greatest thing, I always say this, you have every Batman kind of has their own fighting style. Nolan's is kind of like ninja tactics, like trying to sneak around and pop up here and grab someone, incapacitate and move on. Batman or Ben Affleck just throws people through walls and punches their lights out. Yeah, and even when they're knocked out already, he's just his fist, which is the size of their face, he's just pounding them in the face over and over repeatedly.
Yeah, he just kills them without technically killing them.
Yeah, he makes them wish that they're dead. Honestly, they don't want to wake up.
Robert Pattinson just makes them poop in their pants.
Yeah. Robert Pattinson does so many good things. I kind of feel bad not talking about him in an aspect of this, but he's phenomenal. What Keaton does and what they when you watch the older movies, he kind of has like the one punch, right? He'll just punch them once and they're down for the count. There's not a ton of action happening. This is kind of the same, but they incorporate all the gadgets that he used in all other movies. He uses the grappling gun a lot and pulls them in. Keaton uses gravity and like just force, like the force of his different gadgets to subdue people. And you see that when he swoops down, he picks someone up after he swoops down, carries him into the air, and just body slams him, all from the glide of his the cape. And then he's puts the grappling hook into somebody, pulls him in, and just roundhouse kicks them as they're coming at him. Right, and then
great use of the batarangs.
It is. It really is. The batarangs was like if you remember in '89 when he first pulls out the batarang, it opens like a flip phone. He goes like that, and it like opens, and you see the full batarang. He does it again, and he throws it, and does his thing with it. Also, he starts throwing like just one after the other, like they're throwing knives. It's friggin' phenomenal. It's probably it rivals the warehouse scene for me, and Batman v Superman. It rivals it. The warehouse scene's still phenomenal because you have stealth, you have the gadgets, you have the brute force. It's the whole thing. The warehouse scene's phenomenal, but this rivals it. And Pattinson has some great scenes too, but it's still behind this. So it's
what's
this is
Bale's,
the prime part of the movie.
What's Bale's warehouse or silo scene? Does he have one in combat?
I think
nothing really comes into mind for Bale when I think of combat.
I think his best scene, and it may not be like just straight up combat, but it's in Batman Begins at the loading dock. It's super scary because he's just popping up and grabbing him and taking him away. And it's kind of what I always say. Like I always wanted to see the Batman horror movie where you're seeing it through the eyes of like the robbers or whatever.
Yeah.
And you never really get to see Batman except when he pops out like the monster and takes one away. And you're like, oh shit, shoot it. Like that's something that Nolan did that I don't think anyone's ever done. Snyder kind of did it with the cop kind of looking around and Batman's just in the corner.
Yeah. Not that part always made me laugh because he's not the most nimble of Batman.
No, he knows
it's just like this massive like Hulk of a human. Just
yeah. He knows it.
Hiding in the corner.
He knows it. Yeah. But you know what that scene?
I'm standing so still you can't see me right now.
Yeah, and it's weird. Like when he shoots at him, Batfleck crawls across the ceiling like a xenomorph in Aliens. He's super quick. He never does anything like that ever again.
He used up all that power.
Yeah. It's like he got up there and he was like, "Oh my god, I could never do that again." That was it.
I'm way too big for this.
I'm way too big for this. Yeah, that ceiling would have broke and he would have fell on the floor, and then it would have been even more awkward. He'd be like laying there on his back with a giant piece of drywall ceiling.
Yeah, no lie. Like ceilings aren't tough.
Yeah. It's so anyway. Yeah, Keaton's scenes are just absolutely phenomenal, and then you get to see some amazing like fighter jet style modes where the Batwing comes into the desert and he's like just it's almost like Independence Day.
Yeah,
he's shooting the shit out of them, flying around, and they're Kryptonians, right? So they don't really care.
Yeah,
but they're getting
really
not
pissed
doing
off. Anything, but it looks awesome.
Yeah, they're getting really pissed off. And Nick, they do this really cool thing with the Batwing, where it spins all the way around multiple times. The cockpit stays stationary though.
Oh,
yeah, it's really really cool. And they do.
It's like there's some Star Wars ships that are like that.
There are actually, yeah, there are. Not the Jedi ships, but
technically,
they look similar, don't they? Well, the B-wings kind of do a weird thing, but it's not. It's more of like a.
Yeah. Well, technically,
they don't go all the way around.
Slave One, like when they finally showed us what the inside of Slave One looks like in Book of Boba Fett. Well, actually, no, that was Mandalorian. Who knows? It all blends together.
Yeah,
but
whatever. What's the difference?
The way they designed that is, I believe, the whole ship would almost like oscillate around that like central area.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to say that ship's name, Nick? Are we gonna get canceled?
It's the Slave One or Boba
Shave
Fett
One
starship. The Shave One.
Tonight's episode is brought to you by the Shave One, which none of us do apparently.
Yeah,
not big shavers.
Ever since Harrison was born, I just haven't shaved. I do the neck beard. I get rid of the neck beard. Isn't it funny? That's how much I don't know. I had to look.
Yeah.
Like.
Yep. Nope. It's not there.
This is the first time you've seen yourself in weeks.
Yeah, my hair actually goes from the top of my head down to my ankles. It all connects.
Oh gosh,
it doesn't. Good.
So
anywho, let's get back into it.
Let's get into. So we've talked about the story, the start of the story, the premise of the story. We talked about Supergirl, Keaton's Batman, Zod a little bit. Let's talk about the Chronodome and Barry Prime, Young Barry, and Dark Barry.
Yeah, Dark Flash.
You want to talk about that? That whole dynamic. Like, what'd you think of future Flash? I mean, it made sense, like in the scope of what they were doing and how the loops were replaying, and I loved how Young Barry gets the like Kryptonian weapon in his arm, and then he just like heals so fast that it just becomes a part of his arm, and then he's like using it to fight with. I thought it was
going
awesome.
around and around doing it. Yeah, there's a couple. So two super quick points. Before Barry, while Barry's kind of toying with where to land in time, Nick, there's kind of like a really quick like horror element that happens where this monster shows up, goes down and punches Barry and knocks him out of the loop, and he's like kind of like, what the hell was that? But he's cool with it because he's, for some reason, I would have been like got to figure that out, but we'll figure that out later, I guess.
Yeah.
It's it's at the end of it, like even before that. Also, the second point is he knows that his mom gets murdered, and he's trying to exonerate his dad from being the the murderer. The idea, though, is they never really go into, okay, well, who actually killed his mom, right? It's obviously Reverse Flash. Reverse Flash exists, but Dark Flash is not the one who kills his mom. And it's important to kind of distinguish that, because I think some people could leave this and be like, well, who the hell kills his mom? Why was that never solved? If his dad's innocent, who did it? It's Reverse Flash. It has to be. I think the director even said something that he would plan to put Reverse Flash in the future movie if it was. But so the main villains of this movie is Zod, because Zod's the person coming to destroy this Earth and this timeline. And then there's the Dark Flash. When the Barrys understand that, like, okay, we need to try to figure this out and fix this, there's a reason they go back into the Chronodome. You have Zod realizes that the DNA and the key to the DNA for the Kryptonians is actually in Kara Zor-El, Supergirl. This is why she gets killed. And when she gets killed, they're like, "Oh shit! He got the DNA. He got everything. He's extracting the code from her."
Yep.
When this happens,
doomed, Kryptonians.
and when this happens, Michael Keaton's shot in the sky in the Batwing, and he's like, "I can't eject. Going down, but I'm not going alone." And they're like, "No," and they watch the Batwing fly into the mothership of, like, the Krypton. If they had a mothership, the main ship, as we call it, and it goes down. He brings it down. He blows up, sacrifices himself, takes it all out.
But he doesn't actually take it out because it has a shield, and literally
right.
he does absolutely nothing to this ship.
Right back to Independence Day. Right back to Independence Day. And they're like, okay, well, the young naive Barry. Which, by the way, at this, I know we're kind of jumping around here, but at this point, both Flashes have their powers back. So you've seen dual Flash. You've seen one with the yellow lightning, one with the blue lightning. You get really cool dynamic powers mixed together here. But the younger Barry's like, well, we can fix this. You got here. Let's go back and fix that. So they go back right to the same point to where Kara was about to die, and everything was about to go to shit. They go back. Everything's a little bit different. They're in the middle of the war again. And you guessed it, Kara dies again. Now, there's a really, really cool scene where there's the really super huge Kryptonian who is one of Zod's men. His name is actually, Namek, like Namek, planet Namek from Dragon Ball Z. Yeah. He jumps onto the Batwing. Now, in Man of Steel, you remember this when the Air Force is coming in, he jumps up and rips the cockpit off and, like, takes the pilot out and throws him, right? That echoes in this movie, but it's the Batwing instead of that ship, or instead of that airplane. So he tears out the cockpit, and Batman does a thing where, like, he spins the Batwing where the cockpit stays normal and he ejects. And that's where you kind of see him, like, bring back out his wings again. He's kind of going down. The Batwing crashes. The Kryptonian stands up and he's like, what the hell was that? Right? And, like, how did he do that? Batman comes running up, jumps on his back, does a bunch of things to him.
Cool gadgets. I mean,
really,
super cool little fight right there.
You get to see Batman engage a Kryptonian on Earth, right? So it's something that, like, you've kind of always wanted to, like, you didn't know, but you've always wanted to see it. Right. When he did that, I was like, holy shit, this is happening.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. It goes exactly how you'd imagine Batman facing a giant Kryptonian would go, though.
Right. He takes Batman and literally, like, throws him under his back. You can tell his back is basically, like, wrecked, right? And then all of a sudden, Batman stands up and he's, like, bleeding. He's obviously internal bleeding, right? You're bleeding out of the mouth and such. All of a sudden, the bomb goes off on the Kryptonian, and he's kind of going like this, and he just falls over. And while Batman was standing. And then Batman falls, and then he goes into his death. Barry delivers a line like, "I can save you," and he's just kind of like, "No, you brought me back already. This is it." And then Barry realizes that this is every timeline. This Earth is completely doomed. Zod is going to win, and all this is going to happen. So ultimately, they form this Justice League, and he tries to save the Earth that his mom is alive on, right? Because he's trying to save the planet his mom's alive on, but he realizes he can't save that planet. So even though he stopped her from dying, she's going to die anyway because the whole planet's doomed, right? So you start learning the bigger picture of what has to happen. What happens when this happens is the Barry from the original timeline says to himself, like, okay, we have to, she has to die because I can't save this. I can't, nothing's going to go right if I'm doing this right. But the Barry from the timeline obviously has some vested interest in it, right? Because it's his timeline. So he's like, no, we can't, we have to save this timeline. Yeah, nobody has to die, right? So he starts going back and back and back and around and around and around, and another Barry's trying to stop him. Dark Flash comes into the picture, and as the younger naive Barry keeps going through the timelines, every time he comes back into the Chronodome, he's got a new piece of like Kryptonian steel on him that he's getting stabbed with and healing around. So it's almost like he's like mutating and like becoming this armorish like nightmare thing.
Yeah, he's just got like crystals like sticking
sticking
through his body. It looks pretty gnarly.
It is. And then when Dark Flash shows up, you realize it's kind of the same. And then you realize that Dark Flash is that Barry way in the future. He's been through so many time loops that he's old and decrepit, and the metals fuse with his flesh. And then you're just like, oh my God, there's 3 Barrys now. There's one, and then this one wants to kill the original Barry because he's like, oh, if I kill you, you won't be able to stop me from going back and saving this finally. It just becomes like this,
paradox, if you will.
Complete paradox.
A paradox.
Paradox, yeah. He goes to kill that Barry and kills himself as younger. And then just like in Back to the Future, he starts disappearing, right? And that's where Barry has a chance to go back and set his mom up to die again.
Dude, I didn't even get to mention this when we were talking about the pop culture references.
Mm-hmm.
I about fell out of my seat with the Marty McThigh that was really on his calf tattoo.
Yeah.
That one, that got me. I was like crying.
Yeah. He's like,
you mean Marty McThigh? He's like, dude, that's on your calf. And he's like, whatever.
Yeah, right. Well, he says, yeah. He's like, and it's upside down, and he's like, is it? And then he lifts his leg straight up into the air, and then it's upright because of that. The dude should not be able to lift his leg straight in the air, and he just lifts it straight in the air.
So flexible. I don't understand. Again, Nick, that's number 3. Did that actually happen in the movie?
Yeah, you can tell.
Just making that up on the fly. You never know with me and Jordan.
So, and so what ultimately this ends in with, the craziness is he has to go back and do the one action that sets his mom up to die. And so you see him kind of like, talk to her as an adult, but she doesn't know it's him, right? Because what she knows is he's a little kid. So she has no idea what he would look like as an adult. So he has the interaction with her. And then when he, it's super dramatic because he goes into the whole, I found out my mom's going to die today. And she's like, oh my God, I'm sorry. Can I hug you? It's her that's going to die. But she's comforting him. It's in a different life.
It was a really good little interaction there. Like it was good.
Yeah, it was really good. And then he enters the Speed Force, and then he kind of, does what he does, or he kind of says his goodbye and that he loves her and stuff that he doesn't want her to hear because it would freak her the hell out, right? And then he sets her up to die, and he's on his way.
Yep.
And then,
which it should be noted. So like Barry's dad was arrested for this murder, and that's like the Flash's whole backstory. His dad is in prison for the murder of his mother, which his dad did not commit. And so the whole reason Barry even gets his powers is because he dedicates his life to exonerating his father. So he goes to college, becomes a forensic scientist, gets a job at the Central City PD. He's in the lab, lightning strikes, chemicals go all over him. Bam, he's the Flash. So that's the same here with this. But in the movie, they have video evidence that they tried to use for an alibi for Barry's father of him at the store getting a can of tomatoes because the mom was out of tomatoes for the pasta sauce, so she sent dad to the store and then she got murdered. But in the footage, they got it in. Well, first off, it was like real choppy and stuff because it was from like, I don't know, the 80s or something. So they were able to clean it up, and it was like crystal clear, right? But his dad never like looked up at the camera. All you could see was the top of his hat, right? So it wasn't like enough to free him. So what Barry does in this last scene with his mom, even though he goes back in time, what starts the whole thing is he puts the can of tomatoes in his mom's cart and then the dad doesn't have to go to the store. She's not murdered, blah, blah, blah. Then Zod comes, all that stuff happens. So he goes back in time, removes the can from the cart. But like while he's doing that, he's like, he notices the camera. And he's like, oh. He quickly moves all the cans of tomatoes up to a higher shelf. So when his dad goes to grab the can, he's looking up, camera can see his face. So that's kind of what happens at the end of the movie. And his dad is freed. Yep. Happy ending. And then Jordan, what did you think of the actual ending like that we got?
So
were you expecting this?
No, I was not. It's something interesting is when you put the cans of tomatoes at top, right? Mm-hmm. And you free him. He's like, oh, this is so simple. It's all I gotta do. My mom will pass away and through the whatever tragic event and all this stuff. And, my dad will also be free, but you're still not putting things back to the way it was, right? So much like in New 52, he comes back to his Earth where everything seemingly is the same. Everyone's calling him and does by his name. He has his powers. Barry has the same relationships with everybody, with Iris and such, which is another funny scene. And everything's seemingly amazing. He gets a call from Bruce. And he talks to Bruce. He's like, yeah, thanks for, clearing up that video and blah, blah, blah. It's awesome. Then he's like, oh, yeah, it's great. I'm pulling up now. And you see Ben Affleck's car that he was driving earlier, pull around and, pull through the crowd. Door opens and, the Bruce Wayne gets out of it. It's George Clooney. And he like sunglasses there. He's walking at him. And Barry is one of the best things. Barry's like, who the fuck is that?
Yeah.
It's like there's like no F-bombs the entire time.
Yeah.
And then he just
F-bombs it. Had its one Guardians of the Galaxy PG-13 F-bomb.
Right.
Did you see Guardians 3, Jordan? Because their use of the F-bomb had me crying. It was
cool. I've heard about it, so I'm pretty excited.
Just like this one came way out of nowhere, but like was perfectly used.
Yeah, because he thought everything was normal. He thought he set it back to where it was, and he thought he finally did it right. But they obviously it's him, and he's like Barry, what's wrong? And he's like, are you Batman? And he's just like, what's wrong with you, Barry? Like, and whatever Modge Podge that is, it was George Clooney the whole time. He has a relationship with Barry, and for all we know, George Clooney was, and this is the kind of the satire of the whole thing is maybe the Snyderverse happened, but it was Clooney the whole time and not Ben Affleck. Like it's hilarious to think about, but it's a perfect goodbye to that. Yeah. That's kind of why it just needs to go. Yeah. I'm happy with it. I love the movie. This
is a perfect transition here. The end credit scene, not super important, but has Jason Momoa pop in for a cameo. So we have almost the full Justice League. Sans Ray Fisher, rest in peace. Apparently he does not exist anymore. So they couldn't get old Cyborg. But yeah, so one thing we didn't touch on in the Chronodome, but glad that we didn't, and it kind of landed here, are all of the cameos we got, right? Because when they're in the Chronodome and they're going through time, and the berries are seeing the different worlds. They're all different colors, and they kind of are they're spheres, but they're kind of almost segmented in horizontal lines that kind of look like film strips, honestly. And each one they zoom in on, and they're all a different Superman. So like, it was super cool. We got one silhouette that didn't show a face, which was Henry Cavill. And we got who's his name? The original Superman. Why can't I think of his name?
George Reeves.
Obviously CGI because he's dead. which apparently pissed a lot of people off. Which again,
Well, so real quick, you have the 1950s Superman standing there in black and white. That's George Reeves, and then no relation, Chris Reeve.
Chris Reeve. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, he's the 1970s.
Yeah. So that pissed everyone off, right? Because I'm seeing all these things like, why are people outraged by these cameos? And apparently it's like, oh,
they won't stand for
CGI to like make them make new movements and stuff. And I'm like,
dumb.
Did any of these people not see any Star Wars movie made by Disney? Like, how many characters in Star Wars are dead and now they're just throwing them in movies forever? Or Fast and Furious, where Paul Walker was like in that movie.
But this is DC Comics, and it's cool to hate it, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. So rant over. But anyways, they go through all these different Supermans. You see the original Supergirl. My favorite one, because it didn't technically even exist, was the Nicolas Cage Superman cameo. Yeah. Which, Nick, you need to see this movie just so this Nicolas Cage role can go on the power ranking, because it was epic. But anyways, you see all the worlds, and what this sets up is what Jordan was alluding to, is like the Snyderverse now is one of those worlds. And essentially this story, Flashpoint in the DCU, I'm just going to say DCU for now, canonized every DC property. It now is all canon. Why? Because
Joker's
Flashpoint happened, and now all the timelines and universes are all just a big messy bowl of spaghetti. So technically, they all exist, but they also don't exist. The only thing that really exists is what we're being shown as important, which is going to be the DCU going forward. But like in some capacity, the Snyderverse, obviously, because that's where this Barry came from, exists in the DCU canon. All those Supermen exist. Like anything DC related that you've seen on screen at some point in your life is now canon in some regard in the DCU, which allows them to do whatever the heck they want, which I think is kind of cool.
And another fun thing too is in the George Reeve 1950s, you also zoom in, you see Jay Garrick running.
Yeah.
So, and that's the Jay Garrick who was time traveling in the CW. Early, he's a young Jay Garrick from the CW Flash TV show, which tells you, was he from was his Superman George Reeves? You don't know, right? Like it kind of connects that in a fun way. There's just a lot of things that roll together, and it's just the Snyderverse was obviously super like grand scale. You got to see Darkseid, you got to see all these different things, and I mean that's perfect to like kind of just, like you said, merge the whole worlds together. You almost see a convergence of the worlds. They literally crash into each other. And when they're crashing into each other, again, we're looking at the giant bowl of spaghetti. So everything that's happened, and this is what they're alluding to, I think it's kind of what Mike was saying, everything was happening in different timelines, in different worlds. All those worlds just clashed together, and the history of all those worlds just clashed together, and is about to make a new spaghetti world, which is what we're about to see from James Gunn. Which is really
exciting. And what this allows James Gunn to do is
whatever the hell he wants.
actors that were in the Snyderverse or other DC properties in the new DCU. So that's kind of what the end credit scene is setting up in a way with Aquaman. Barry is like, so he's telling him the story of pretty much the whole movie, and Aquaman's like, so you're saying there's like another one of me, but it's like not me, and it's a little different, but it's still like me. And Barry's like, yeah, pretty much. And it was like drunk Aquaman trying to wrap his head around that. But like, I mean, will Momoa and Aquaman be in the DCU?
The question is it this Earth? Because if this tells us there could be other Barry Allens out there that aren't Ezra Miller.
Right.
So exactly. What happened? Were they kind of just showing us where Ezra Miller's world is moving forward, and then we're about to see another world out there of what this is, and maybe the Aquaman that we see isn't this Aquaman? Like, who the hell knows, right? That's the only thing that's kind of confusing, because if they do it off of this world, then George Clooney's Batman.
Yeah.
Which we know that's not going to be
But-
what James Gunn wants.
Yeah,
Which
because Ezra
man,
Miller.
I've always wanted when I heard. Well, that's the thing is James Gunn's like, I haven't ruled out using Ezra Miller as the Flash moving forward. So,
which they need to, and this is a perfect bon voyage to whatever that is. And
yeah, just do it. But in Mike's little like fantasy pipe dream world, this allows the Snyderverse to continue on and not disrupt the DCU. Like, there's now a case where they can both exist and like be happy in their own places.
Yeah,
they won't. I said this is fantasy land, like what I would love if my wildest dreams could come true.
That's your wildest dream.
No, okay. Nick, you settle down over there, sir. Okay.
But the bottom line is like there's times where I'm just like, what am I going to watch? I'm like, you know what? I'm going to watch a couple chapters in the Snyder Justice League. It's a damn good movie.
It's never a bad choice.
And it does everything it needs to in 1 4-hour movie. Like if that was
or
it,
4 1-hour shows.
Right?
Yeah,
that's right. That's all I need.
It's 8 episodes, 30 minutes each.
All I need is Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman extended cut, and the Snyderverse Justice League.
I just wish that we could have seen more of like the freaking desert, like time travel-y, like apocalypse, like dark side
with the Joker and all that.
Oh yeah, that Joker, phenomenal, and Deathstroke, of course. I wanted to see him.
But with all that being said, what do you think, if anything, James Gunn does with what the Flashpoint potentially sets up, or is he just using that as, like you said, like, one, this was pretty much already done by the time he kind of stepped in and took over, but two, it's the DC Great Reset, right? It allows him to just be like, they're stamping the Snyderverse. By the way, everything else you've seen could possibly be canon, but here, this allows me to now start the DCU and move forward, except Aquaman 2 is coming out in like 5 months, and that technically is the DCEU, so deal with that, nerds.
Right.
Or is it?
It's he said already, it's Superman Legacy. Superman's going to exist in a world where there's already tons of superheroes. So the world's going to be akin to a bunch of superheroes. Will we see a bunch of origins? He might lean in some origins of what people already know.
We need a Batman origin story. I think we really need to start there.
Yeah, we haven't seen enough of that for sure. We could
that's
definitely
incredible. Yeah. Well, I think we're going to see the Damian Wayne origin story, obviously, and that's in a lot of ways that'll be good. So you'll see a Batman kind of observing a world where where superpowers exist. My guess is that we'll see Shazam eventually. We'll get to see the classic historical rivalry between Shazam and Superman. Maybe Shazam's threatened by him. Maybe Shazam is, in the Snyderverse style, he's always like super self-conscious, unsure of himself. I want to be better. I want to be bigger. Maybe he's the star of the show. Maybe he is Superman. Maybe he's like the cream of the crop. And then Superman shows up and he's like, "Dude, what are you doing? You're cramping my style." Just like he did with sales in the 50s. But there's dynamics there. There's dynamics with Batman. Can you have 2 Bruce Waynes on big screen? Can you have the Robert Pattinson Bruce Wayne, and can you have this new Bruce Wayne come into play?
Yeah,
I think it's kind of weird. I think it's hard to do. The Brave and the Bold storyline, that's a title that was used through so many different aspects of the history in DC. It was a huge team up book early on. The Justice League of America was introduced in Brave and the Bold at 28, and they fought Starro. You have you have the first Silver Age appearance of Hawkman and Hawkgirl in Brave and the Bold. You have all these different amazing team ups. Eventually, it became just a Batman team up where you team up with Green Arrow, you team up with whoever, and Hal Jordan they first met in there. That's what obviously led to the cartoon Batman Brave and the Bold, where the teams up with everybody, right?
Yeah, obviously.
So you have all these different things you can do with that title. I have this weird feeling that it won't be a super dark Batman. I think maybe he'll be in the gray and the blue, be much brighter than the other Batmans. I think the whole universe will be a little bit brighter than it was before, and Batman will be brighter himself, but he'll still just be the darkest version of all those brighter people, right? Just like in Brave and the Bold cartoon, I think there's something there that they can use on that. But ultimately, I don't think that Bruce Wayne will stick around for very long. They'll probably establish Robin, Teen Titans, and go forward with it. That way, there's not two Bruce Waynes going. I've said it before in our text chain that in Brave and the Bold, eventually Batman's actually killed off, and Dick Grayson assumes the role of Batman.
Yeah,
he does that.
Batman's just a cow, man.
Right.
You just can't have two Bruces.
He wants to use the whole Bat family as well. He said there'll be tons of Bat family members brought into the play, so it's a perfect setup. Right.
Are you like related to or good friends with James Gunn? Because she seem to share the same opinions and views on women in superhero movies. So I'm just kidding. I like that girl.
Okay, yeah. I forget. I had the first Barbara Gordon appearance. I can't remember what issue it is.
Shoot. What the heck was I going to say?
There's a lot of stuff that can happen, and I think ultimately, I think James Gunn's big bad guy is going to be Necron from the Black Lanterns, and they'll do like a big zombie apocalypse in the end. It's probably not a coincidence. He's got a horror director right now, kind of headlining a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, with the Green Lantern, Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan, you have them trying to figure out what's happening. Maybe there's a slight zombie story there. It's happening with the dead coming back.
Have you read the Deceased books?
I have not actually. I have a lot of them. Cool. I've just never sat down to read them. I think actually there's actually a new HeroClix box set coming out. And I think the Chase figures are all Deceased figures.
Oh,
so
nice.
I'm gonna have to figure that out.
Yeah, I got a few of the hardcovers back there, which you can't see because my big head is blocking the way. Also,
I heard Deathstroke's like awesome in those books.
Yeah, they're pretty sweet. So it'd be cool if they could incorporate something like that. I feel like. Oh, this is what I was going to say. When I heard, well, first off, what I would have loved to see from the Batfleck, since he was an older Batman, and even more so when I heard about Michael Keaton coming into the picture, how cool would it be to get like a Batman Beyond story of like an older Batman, like doing exactly what you said, passing on the cowl and the legacy to a younger person, right? Because he's getting old and he can't do it.
Right.
So I don't obviously we're not getting that story, but it would be cool. Like you were alluding to, just Batman obviously passing the cowl down to the next person. And
there was actually a rumor, and Michael Uslan's son. Michael Uslan was I always joke of the certification I have for like the superheroes and their impact on pop culture. That was a Michael Uslan class, and he was a producer for Batman '89, and he's been involved with every Batman movie since. And he's really good friends with Kevin Smith, and supposedly Kevin Smith had told, or Michael Uslan's son told Kevin Smith that had the Flash movie done well, they were going to use Keaton in a Batman Beyond movie, which probably won't happen because it's obviously underperformed. Yeah. And so it's a little sad.
But so sick. Sick.
It's obviously out there, so we'll see what happens. Yeah. Dude, we got Swamp Thing coming. There's so many good things on the horizon. I'm excited.
So what do you think Blue Beetle is going to do? Because that is the first entry in James Gunn DCU.
Also a Teen Titan, ironically too, right? So I don't know. It's weird, man. I'm excited to see it. I think it's he's always been kind of like their answer to like an amalgam of Spider-Man and Iron Man together. Like he's a unique character, and the fact that they're going to go into like Ted Kord and the previous Blue Beetle him kind of escaped me. But it's weird because you look at all the Ted Kord, all the different Blue Beetles over history. One was like just like a guy who like, used a gun and called himself the Blue Beetle because he found a scarab. Then flash forward, you have Ted Kord, who it was the next Blue Beetle. He used the gadgets. He had like the flying beetle, like ship and everything. He had the Blue Beetle Scarab also, but he unlocked the power a little bit. But the beetle never bonded with him. But he harnessed the power to create these unique gadgets because the Scarab itself is alien tech. It's an alien AI. It's alien intelligence in general. It's sentient. Is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Damn. And
There's a word for that.
We got there. We got there eventually.
We got there. And what happens is, so Ted Kord, creates really cool gadgets out of that. But Jaime Reyes, he actually bonds with the Scarab. The Scarab chooses him, so he gets to utilize the full power of it. So you have a bunch of characters who share the same name, but they harness the powers and the capabilities of the Scarab completely different from one another. And it's something that wasn't planned out. You just have different characters named Blue Beetle through different points in time, and they just kind of chop them together. So I'm super excited to see how they're going to do that all in the same movie, or at least explain a little bit of it, how it's going to perform. I have no predictions with that. I think it'll be. I think
throw it out there. Probably going to be terrible, just like all the other DC box office performances. Yeah, the trailer looked real fun. I like the trailer is very dark in color, like a lot of nighttime scenes, a lot of very dark. But the suit itself and like stuff around the suit is very bright and vibrant colors, and I love the contrast there, like visually, of the colors and the like saturation and tone and stuff. Super cool.
Yeah, and you get to see something similar to like what how Green Lantern works. Anything he imagines, you can create, right?
Yeah,
I think it might surprise us and do pretty good. I think it'll be one of those things that's just like it's a movie that performs pretty damn well, but a lot of people don't even realize like what implications it has to what it's connected to.
So Iron Man,
right? Yeah.
Yeah, but
I could never, in good faith, compare it to the masterpiece of 2008's Iron Man. but in the scenario,
well, in hindsight, the masterpiece of it was a great movie. But like you said, I don't think anyone watched that and was like, "Oh my gosh, this is going to unlock 25 years of the largest cinematic universe in film history."
I didn't say that, but when Nick Fury showed up at the end and told him what else that there is out there to deal with, I literally stood up in my seat. And I was just, I'm not even exaggerating. I didn't care who. I'm like the drunk chick at a concert. I don't care who's behind me. I don't care who's behind. I don't know. I was completely quiet, but I was just like,
live your life, man.
Yeah.
I
mean, awesome. God help anyone who tried to contain me at that point. God help them.
Yes. But yeah, hey, my last point for tonight, and then we'll wrap up because we're getting close to 2 hours here. But the MCU stands will no longer have an excuse. James Gunn, one of their beloved, is now in charge of the DCU, so they can no longer really hold that against the DCU. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. They definitely, and at the end of the day, the Flash completely erased everything, made fun of some things, and relaunched everything. So it's got, it's got some balls. There's no doubt about that.
Balls that no longer reside in the Soviet scrotum.
Right.
But yeah, I got into like a little, I wouldn't even say Twitter argument, but a Twitter discussion about how essentially fans forced WB to ruin Zack Snyder's vision for the DCEU. And the guy I was talking to just did not really comprehend that was kind of the flow of what happened. But anyways, that's again, I've already talked about that 1,000 times on this podcast.
At the core of it, people just don't care. They're like, it sucks. I don't care what happens. It's just...
But yeah, I like this episode structure here where Jordan and I just explain a movie to Nick that he hasn't seen yet. I think this might be a new series.
Like what's watching, what's playing. This one's called What's Happening.
Yeah, and Nick has no idea, and Mike and Jordan try to explain it to him.
But also try to leading me astray with weird
Yeah, you'll never
references.
know.
I
You'll
will
never
know eventually because I'm going to watch this movie. But I think I need to. I might rewatch the Snyderverse before this comes out on Max.
He did it again. It's not your volume, people. It's Nick.
HBO pays me to say it like that.
It's not your volume, people. It's my camera.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah, the at least Man of Steel, but I can always get behind a full rewatching of the Snyderverse. We also picked a very, easy to tell story to like fill you in on in a movie that you've never seen before. I mean, none of this is confusing at all in the least bit when you're dealing with time travel and like massive comic book stories being translated onto, the big screen.
To the same people.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Actually, 3 of them at some point.
You got the paradox going, and like, yeah, I mean, you'll get it. But yeah, thank you, Jordan, so much for coming on. I've been wanting to talk DC stuff, and glad we were able to do it with a pretty good and fun movie.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nick, for hanging out and listening to us talk about DC. We got to let this guy get off because his Steam Deck arrived today, and he's just, I'm feeling like the Steam Deck pool is probably pretty hard right now.
This reminds me of the poop deck on a boat.
You've changed one too many diapers, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in it.
It's the steamy deck.
Yeah, the steamy deck.
All right, guys. Make sure you subscribe here to Showboys. Head over to patreon.com/showboyspodcast. Check it out and sign up today. And we will see you next week when we're actually joined by another guest. One that is we punched way above our like weight class here with this one. So next week should be pretty fun. If you want to be prepared, watch the American Gladiators documentary on ESPN. And if you want to be extra prepared, watch the Amazing Jonathan documentary on Hulu. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
He's not gonna. He made it,
dude.
Mike.
I was peeing literally the entire time that theme song was playing.
Where's your pops, man?
Dude, so I found one from last night. I've been drinking this one this whole time, and I was running low. I'm like, God damn it! Oh, there's one.
Yeah, it's looking quite bare, and I think every other week it probably will get a little more bare until I'm just in a completely different location. So yeah, stay tuned for that.